So you have experienced rejection in its first order.
Rejection, just that word alone, it brings back so many unwanted memories. I had my parents picked up my suitcase, my clothes, my Sophia bags. It wasn't taken to my auntie's house, inside her house. It was taken by my parents and dumped in front of my auntie's staircase, in front of her door. Me coming home and seeing my bags out of my parents' house into the front door, it shattered me, it broke me, because that was a very vivid and very clear indication by my parents to say, we don't want you.
I can reassure when we talk about resilience, girl, I don't know how you do it. And right now, you're dealing with a lot that people don't know. So can you let us, the viewers watching, a little bit into your life of your struggles with health and chronic illness?
Illness looks very different on everybody. It's not a one shoe fits all. I got diagnosed at a young age with kidney failure, July 2017. I was actually at work, clearly did make it. I ended up in hospital. That was the first conversation we had about the next stage of my treatment, dialysis.
Welcome, guys. So today I have a special guest, and her name is Evia Aringo. Today on the episode, we'll be discussing Evia's journey from rejection to resilience, a young politician's fight for life and change. Imagine surviving a life of rejection, chronic illness, and enduring unimaginable setbacks, only to rise as a beacon of hope and change in your community. Meet Evia Aringo, made history as the first South Sudanese to be elected into the state's local government. She defied all the odds and turned her pain into purpose. Her story will move you, it will challenge you, and inspire you to see resilience in a whole new light. From an infant separation from her mother, from the streets of Kampala, to the corridors of power in Western Australia. I'm introducing the extraordinary, my friend, Evia Aringo. Welcome, Evia.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very excited.
You look good.
You look amazing. Confident yourself.
Like minds. I've always said we're twinning.
Great mind thinks alike. Twin flame.
So,
Yes.
what are you anticipating on this episode today?
I'm just really, really excited, to be honest with you. I think we go through so much in life that sometimes you don't get a chance to process it. And once you've gone through the stages of processing it, there's a testimony that's within it, right? And there's a story of hope that everybody has, that it's there to challenge other people, but it's also there to motivate others or to build hope for other people as well. So for those listening or watching from wherever you're watching tonight, but yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to, just to delve deep into some of those tough conversations.
So, I know about the story and everything.
Okay.
But you've had such a remarkable journey. Can you share to the viewers a little bit more about your early life and how it has shaped you to the person you are today?
For those who are watching from home, wherever you are, Cece and I have had a very extensive conversation about my childhood growing up. And what a lot of people would not know about me is that I was born in a refugee camp in Uganda, in Kiradongo. But growing up, I was actually separated from my mum. It happens a lot in an ethnic household where, your mum and your dad get married, they have you, and then they both separate and they go off and, have their own respective families. And obviously it's always the child that gets taken and to go and live wherever the dad is going. So yeah, so I did. I got stripped from my mum for the longest years of my early childhood. I wasn't near my mum. I didn't grow up with my mum. I was in the same country. It was almost like you lived sort of in a different state to my mum. And so we lived over in Kipkum, which is the northern parts of Uganda. And she was still pretty much where I was born, on her way to the capital city. So I didn't know any of the rest of the kids that she had with my stepdad. Didn't meet them, didn't know anything. So there was that element as well. I think the first time I got to spend with my mum when I was a little bit older would have been now when my dad migrated to Australia, because he came first with his wife and everyone else. I was back and I was obviously studying in Kampala at the time. And it was my dad's sister's best friend's daughter that I was left in her care. So I wasn't even left with, like my mum's sister. I was actually left with an extended family member. I mean, when you talk about the love of God, that's literally the love of God right there, placing you in the care of people who absolutely takes you in and accepts you as their own. So I did. I grew up, went to school in Kampala. I still remember vividly. I would go back home only on school holidays when the terms were over. And it was like a treat if I got taken to visit my mum. And even when I did, I would only spend maybe 2 weeks, a month, the longest. And then you go through the whole emotions of saying goodbye to your mum all over again. And God knows when you're going to see her again. So yeah, like the last time I saw my mum, I was 7 years old, probably a week before we came to Australia. That was the last time. I'm now 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
For someone who has a similar story to yours, like circumstances, cultural circumstances and injustice happened in my family that did take my mom away from me. And so I do understand as a young girl the confusion, the impact that has on you, on your self-worth, on your mindset. From an onset, you start to question your worthiness. You start to question why you? Why is it, others could have mommy, daddy, and yours, there was this emptiness. So did you grasp how immense of an impact that experience would be for you, not being with your mom?
At the time, because I was still pretty young, that I did not get the concept at all. It wasn't something that it was at the forefront of my mind. However, my early teenage years, it hit me hard. Only because as a young girl, when you are growing up, there are things that your mom teaches you. There are things that you learn from your mom. There are many first. And I'll give you a very good example. Some of those is as simple thing as being a girl, right? How to be a girl. You're from an ethnic household as well. So you know the emphasis that gets put on being a girl. Like the way girls are raised is quite different to how boys are raised. Now, I missed that out from my mom. I never got that from my mom. I did, however, get that from total strangers who are not even my family members, but they obviously raised me throughout my teenage years. People who stepped up to the plate to be mothers. They taught me how to cook. They taught me how girls dress. They taught me the importance of taking care of my hair. Conversations around boys, just etiquettes and how to behave as a girl. And those are things that normally you would pick up from your mom. And yet there are also life lessons. The way my mom grew up as a young child, I never got to hear that story. So there's a chunk of me that I don't know whether the way I am now is a resemblance of my mom when she was young. And that's one piece of me where I'm like, oh man, if only I can get that opportunity, I would love to. And when you have young girls, especially my age, it's like, oh, my mom, I did this with my mom. And I'm like, my mom's across the globe. I got to put airtime to call her and figure out the international time zones. But still, because I was so separated from her, and The separation didn't, by the way, I'm just going to go back a little bit about the separation. It didn't end when I came to Australia. You would think I got in communication with my mom. No, I started talking to my mom when I was about 16 or 17 years old. So I haven't seen my mom, spoken to my mom since I was 7. The first time I would have had a conversation with her, I was about 16, 17 years old. And then only for me to find the story behind it is that my mom had actually been trying to reach me. But in life, there's always going to be obstacles. But every time she would phone, she was told that I was at work.
Oh, wow.
So I never knew all of that until I got on a phone call with my mom one day. And that's another story for another day. It was emotional. But one of the hardest thing until now that separation has caused is that sometimes my mom feels like a total stranger to me. And that's a very hard reality because sometimes I'm like, I have a mom, but yet she's totally like, there's a bit of her that is a total stranger. Sometimes I can't relate to her. Sometimes I relate really well to her. So there's still that mixed match, like that I'm still experiencing, still going through. But yeah, that's the challenges that I've been facing recently.
As you said earlier, you separated from mom. Your background was away from your comfort zone and you were raised by dad and stepmom. That experience, being raised by your stepmom and dad, how did that experience impact you and how did you relate with others as well?
There's one thing I always tell people is that no one can love you better and more than your own birth mom. And it doesn't matter how I put that statement, but the pure fact remains there is a love of a mother that you can only get from your birth mom. Someone else can love you, but there's a limit and there's condition to that love. And so, yeah, I did experience what we call conditional love growing up in that respect. And that brought upon its own challenges. Having that conditional love, not necessarily from my dad, but obviously from my stepmom, it brought about me, you know, having to leave home. Well, I didn't choose to leave home, was out of the house. But, like I was out of the house at such a young age, like early year 8, having to go and live with my other relatives and then having to not have any communication with either of my parents. It felt like I was an orphan in a country that I didn't choose to migrate to. This is how I felt for the longest time growing up until I healed. And that thought resonated for so long with me and it traveled for so long. And I saw it manifest in every aspect of my life because I used to complain and say, I never chose to leave my mum. I was never given that choice. I was just taken and then I was brought here. Now, I'm very grateful for the opportunities Australia's given me, but the circumstances surrounding my family and me being taken from my mom to here and me then going through all of that and living in this country that gave me such a beautiful life till now and still feeling like, you know what? I would have been better off suffering where my mother is than to suffer in a foreign country where I have a dad, I have a mum, and I have family members, but it's like I'm an orphan. So that's how badly it impacted me when I was young.
And for me, when I lost my dad,
Yeah.
I had to depend on my mom.
Yep.
But then again, I had to be taken away from her. So I had to leave and stay with multiple people, multiple challenges. And as a kid, it forces you to grow. You do not experience the normal childhood that everyone is supposed to experience. You do not have the time to play. You do not have the time to regulate your emotions and just be free, be this little girl, try on colors and stuff like that. So I found myself becoming an adult at such a young age and having to think on my feet, having to take care of myself because no one cared enough to do that. And this is what it says: the mother's love can never be replaced. It can't. And so for all the children out there that are being displaced and taken from their parents, I do resonate. You understand?
Yeah.
Because that is a feeling that despite the age that comes, it can never be filled.
No.
It really can't. And let's talk about rejection.
Yeah.
As kids, we've both experienced rejection because the only person who had to protect you from the world wasn't there.
No.
And rejection leaves deep scars. And it feels way worse when it comes from family.
Yeah.
So you have experienced rejection in its first order. So let me know, walk us through your first experience with rejection and how that has impacted you relating to yourself and to others today.
Rejection, just that word alone, it brings back so many unwanted memories. It's a very triggering word at the same time. I will give you a very vivid example that I think until today, sometimes when I still think about it, it hurts, right? My auntie picked me up from my parents' house the night I was told, you don't want to live here, get out of the house. So I contacted her and she came to pick me up. The agreement was take Evia for 2 weeks, let her calm down, then we sit down as a family and we discuss what was the issue. Sissy, within a week, I was at school, going to school from my auntie's house. Within a week, I had my parents picked up my suitcase, my clothes, my Sophia bags. For any of the ethnic kids watching, you know what a Sophia bags are. It wasn't taken to my auntie's house, inside her house. It was taken by my parents and dumped in front of my auntie's staircase, in front of her door. I was at school. I came back from school and I found the stuff there. And pretty much it was the conversation went along the line of this to my auntie, between my parents and my auntie, you can keep her. Now, my auntie was very glad. For her, she took it as she doesn't have any daughters. She's only got boys. Woohoo, God's gifted her with a daughter. She didn't care. But me coming home and seeing my bags out of my parents' house into the front door, it shattered me. It broke me because that was a very vivid and very clear indication by my parents to say, we don't want you. And that's something that even in my adult life, working hard, like you said before, you're forced to grow up. You're forced to maneuver the world as a grown up. So I've always had it in the back of my mind that everything I do, I must succeed in it. There is no room for failure for me. Like, I don't know what failure is, and I'm not interested in knowing what failure is. I must succeed. And that's why day and night, doesn't matter what I'm going through, I must succeed because I've already got people, my own blood, who literally looked at me, dumped me out, rejected me, and pretty much said, you're useless. You will amount to nothing. So for me, I'm like, I must prove myself. And that goes back to the impact that it had. I didn't feel that value. Like I felt like I was worthless. I was a useless child. I had no value in me. And for the longest time, I felt like that's why even my dad felt like it was okay for him to join my stepmom and dump my things in front of my auntie's front door. So for the longest time, that's how I felt. And until now, I'm like, I must work hard. I must succeed. I've got to prove to these guys that no, I'm not a useless person. I can make it. I can achieve absolutely anything. And I'm not that young child that they dumped on the steps of my auntie's house in Brisbane.
That's the thing though. I always tell, and when I talk to friends and I'm like, I do not understand how family can turn an eye, like a blind eye on you. There's so many ways that you could navigate, especially from the communities that we come from. I always say we're not well equipped to manage our emotions,
Yep.
to manage family dynamics, family trauma. And so it has gone through generational curses. And a lot of families right now, ethnic families, have this separation because of conflict, no empowerment or in being equipped to actually resolve things. And having to experience that as a young child, that shouldn't be your place to have experienced that. And unfortunately, that happened to you. And sometimes when we as young kids grow into adulthood, we carry that along without even knowing. We start to overprove ourselves. Even in the workspace, we start to do more just because subconsciously at the back of our minds, we were told we were not useful. We were told we were not valuable. I remember my own case was literally hearing a family member calling me the ugly duckling, saying I wasn't pretty enough compared to my sisters.
Oh, stop and look at you now.
Well, I'm sure they're biting their fingers now, but but with that as a child, hearing someone speak such gruesome words, destructive words, it sticks. Where even at a time where people pour into you, you're not in the capacity to receive it.
No.
You're really not. Because for a very long time, I've always felt ugly compared to my sisters.
It's in the words.
It's in the words. And I've always felt like very timid, and I've always wanted to be in the background. I've never wanted to have anything to be in the spotlight. Yes. I'm like, if the spotlight is on me, people are going to see how ugly I am. People are going to see my insecurities. People are going to see, the black sheep of the family. Everyone is being celebrated aside of me. So it is unfair. But one thing we do thank the Lord is resilience. And this next part of your life,
Oh boy.
this next part of your life, I can reassure when we talk about resilience, girl, I don't know how you do it. When I look at you, like most people do know, the platform is daring different for a reason. There's the people who dare to do things differently, who overcome unimaginable setbacks, and you're one of them. And right now, you're dealing with a lot that people don't know. So can you let us, the viewers watching, a little bit into your life of your struggles with health and chronic illness?
Yeah. Well, for the longest time, this was something we're we normally don't talk about. And I think this is right. I love that this is called Daring Different, because illness looks very different on everybody. It's not a one shoe fits all. And I know for a lot of the viewers watching, or if you're listening to us, you're probably like, you sound fine, you look fine, like you look amazing. I got diagnosed at a young age with kidney failure. And I know Cici and I, we've sort of touched base a little bit on what that was like, but I have practically pretty much been battling this since 2015. And we've had quite a few hospital trips, a lot more than I would like to keep count. Cici and I do have a running joke that I don't know which one of us will rack up. If there was a frequent flyer points for frequent flyers in hospital, I'm just not sure between us who would take them. But at this point, I think I might have to take the lead.
You might be surprised. It might be me.
So I got diagnosed with end-stage renal failure, as they call it. It was very, very quick from moving from diagnosis. It literally went, oh yeah, I'm just going to the GP's appointment, moved to a new state. I'm just going to go get a checkup, got blood tests done, and then got called in. Hi, we need to have a chat. And that conversation ended up with a very quick referral being done to the hospital. And within 2 weeks, I was seeing a kidney specialist, a nephrologist. So that would have been 2015. Early, so I was a little bit stable, but still seeing the doctors every 3 months or so. But comes early July 2017, I was actually at work, clearly did make it. I ended up in hospital. That was the first conversation we had about the next stage of my treatment, dialysis. So we went through that went through transplant, went through rejections after rejections, and then went through having the kidney removed. And now, every night we are back to dialysis. We are attached to a machine every night. I do peritoneal dialysis 10 hours every night. And you just, nobody would know. No one knows.
No one would know. Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing about chronic illnesses. Like, people always feel to judge.
Yeah.
And I would say what people don't know, they fear a
They
lot.
fear.
You get. And
Yeah.
so you look fine, you articulate, you're beautiful, you've got your makeup on. That has nothing to do with what people actually deal with
Yeah.
inside. And most people nowadays are so fearful of opening up.
Yeah.
Of speaking because of the pushback, of the judgment, of the insecurities that comes with going through chronic illness. I know you've figured back and you've rushed through it, but we have to go back. We do have to go back because I do know that other people out there that are going through one of the biggest challenges in your health and they feel lonely. And there's someone there as well who has similar illness to yours. Can you walk us through the first experience, the first time you heard the word, this is what you're dealing with? And from that, what was your thought process? What were you thinking? How was your emotions? How did you handle that?
I'm going to try not to cry. So this was back in 2017. I had a kidney biopsy done so they could work out what has caused my kidney to fail. And I remember the results coming back. I was admitted in hospital and I was an inpatient at the time. And I remember the doctors came through. They had a chat to me. My mum was home, actually. Yes, she was home. And sorry, I do have to rectify. I think people might get a bit confused. Your mum, but hang on. So we always say family's not by blood. So I'm very privileged and very, very blessed to have my uncle's wife. So my birth mum's brother's wife actually look after me and be my mum pretty much here in Perth. But she was at home with a young baby at the time. And she was going to come later, but I had gotten this news because obviously I was at an age where they can tell me things. So the doctors came in and asked my mum still home. They said when my mum comes in, they'll have a chat to her as well. But they pretty much sat down and talked me through what they found. And it was what we call output syndrome, which is a genetic thing. And then they walked me through what my next sort of plan looked like from here onwards and what they were aiming to do. I was in my early 20s. Being that young and literally being like, I'm at the prime of my nursing career at that time, right? And being told, this is what's wrong with you. Cece, I would be lying if I said I took it on like a soldier. I cried. I cried for an hour uncontrollably. And I remember what my nurse had walked through, she came in and she just sat. I mean, she had 6 patients to look after that day, but she sat with me for that hour and just held me and just let me cry. She absolutely let me cry. She did tell me my life is not over, but at that time, did I listen? Absolutely not. I was distraught. I was besides myself because I was like, I'm young. How am I going to live with this? My life is over. I'm going to die. Like, that was my thought process. But I can definitely tell you, it broke me. It absolutely crushed me that my life was not the same anymore. If I can describe what it felt like somebody had put a plague on your back.
Yes.
You can't get rid of it. And it felt like at any moment, people will know and people will stop looking at you as Evia. They will look at you as the sick girl, the girl who's weak, the girl who needs to be pitied, right? So there was a lot of the labeling that would come with it. So I cried. I cried for an hour straight. Then I cried some more when my mother came.
So Walking in the having discussions with your specialist,
Yeah.
having all of that. Most people don't understand mental health and chronic illness work hand in hand. How was your mental state going from knowing what your diagnosis is, going through or transitioning through treatment, and now? How has that journey been mentally?
Mental health is a big thing, and I've always been very vocal about it. Being someone who suffered from depression in the past, when I was a lot younger, I somewhat was more fearful about relapsing or allowing myself to go through that again. But one thing that really kept me going was my faith, right? I come from a very faith-filled family, and the only thing I knew how to do at that time was to literally get on my knees and pray. Because in order for me to understand my emotions, that's how I dealt with it. It was through my faith. Now, if you're watching us, you might not be a person of faith, and that's totally okay. But one advice I would give, if you're ever going through something, especially chronic illness, and you feel like your mental health is taking a turn, there is always help available. Talk to people, talk to your loved ones, talk to your specialists, talk to your care team. They will guide you and they will direct you. Do not feel ashamed about the way that you're feeling. Because honestly, with me, at first, I felt quite ashamed that how was I going to be able to talk about this? So I felt like I had to internalize all those feelings. But actually, coming out a little bit later and actually realizing that no, actually, this is not a death sentence for me, but rather I can talk to people. I can reach out. Find something that you love to do and do that. And I think the most important thing you can do for yourself is forgive yourself that it is not your fault that you actually have a chronic condition. Because that's the biggest thing. Oftentimes we blame ourselves and say, oh, if only I had done this different. And I'll give you a great example. A lot of people asked me, oh, is it because, like you drink or, you smoked or you did drugs? And I'm like, no, didn't. And so you feel very like, and so if you're at home, you've got a kidney disease, and you obviously used to like an occasional live a little, have an occasional drink. It's not your fault that you have a kidney disease, and it's not because of the alcohol. You know what I mean? So forgive yourself and realize you have the right to live as everybody else does. Yeah. It's just that you are one of the very few special people on this earth that have been selected to carry.
I like that word, selected.
You have been selected to carry this massive battle that your sister couldn't carry, your brother couldn't carry, your grandparents couldn't carry, your mother couldn't carry, your dad couldn't carry. You, my friend, is a special one, and you're strong enough to carry it. And so my favorite Bible verse of all, God will not give you anything that you cannot bear. That's and right. There is a purpose that's attached to everything. Just hang in there, but most of all, love yourself and forgive yourself.
Talking about the pain, and you're talking about the guilt.
Yeah.
Okay.
We know exactly what that's like, don't we?
Not our fault, but we can't help but feel guilty. And I've always wondered, especially with what I know, a little bit of your story, background, the pressure that comes to people in the fight of chronic illness that has to do with organ donation and receiving.
Oh.
There are other spectrums of disability and illnesses that you do have your own challenges to fight.
Yep.
But then again, you are spared from the double challenge of
transportation.
You understand?
Yeah.
So can you tell me what it feels like when you hear that noise? But before that, how long does it take for someone to have new organs or kidneys?
Or
educate us, please.
so currently, and every jurisdiction is different. So currently in Western Australia, for a kidney, you're looking at about a 3-year wait. Like I said before, I was very lucky the first time around. 2 weeks, I got a kidney offer. It had cancer in it, didn't get transplanted. Another 2 weeks later, I got another offer that I got transplanted with. So in total, the first time I did dialysis, it was only a month. That's a very, very, very a miraculous case. Once in a forever thousands, right? But this time round, I have been waiting on the transplant list almost 3 years. Yeah. And also because I had been sick throughout, I've had multiple surgeries, and so my thyroid was playing up at one point. So I had a parathyroidectomy done. So that meant then I was on the interim, I was taken off the transplant list. So then you're not on there at all. So even if a donor comes, voila, you don't get it because you're unwell. The time I was in ICU for a week, well, I tell you what, I was taken off the list for a few months until I was recovered. But the good thing I found out, I don't lose my position on the list.
Okay.
Whenever I caught COVID, which I was very blessed, I had COVID 4 times. So which meant 4 times of that year,
You were taken off.
I was taken off the list for 7 weeks. So 7 weeks multiplied by 4. That's how many weeks I spent out of the transplant.
That's a lifetime for someone
It is.
like you in your position. That's a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's very scary.
Yeah.
So each time you're sick,
Yeah, you catch an infection because your body needs to recover because it's such a traumatic surgery for your body. Yeah. But 3 years. 3 years is a waiting period.
have there been times where people have waited longer than 3 years? And they've
Yes.
survived? Have they survived that?
Yes.
The wait? Do people survive the wait?
Yes. So I think I've spoken to you about me being given the nickname baby of the
Baby of the
dialysis
unit.
baby of the unit. So the first time round, 2017, when I walked into dialysis unit at Charlie's, I was the baby. And me being a chitty chatter, so I walked in and I was like, "Hi, I'm Evia. How are you?" Look, had a spare 5 minutes before they got me on that chair and tried to convince me about those needles. But I got a chance to strike up a conversation with a couple of the patients there. And I remember a nurse telling me, going, "Oh, don't worry. So, because I did say by faith when I walked in there and I said, 'Mum, mark my words, I'm not going to be here in 2 weeks.' I'm declaring in Jesus' name, I'm not. I refuse to be here in 2 weeks." Anyways, God heard my prayers, but it wasn't time. But anyways, back to the story. So the nurse was introducing sort of those around me, and she goes, for context, I'll use anonymous names.
Yeah.
Was like, "Oh, hi, this is Kathy. Kathy's been waiting for 4 years for a transplant. Hi, that's Matthew. Matthew's been waiting for 6 years."
Oh, wow.
And then I met Sheila. Good old Sheila. Sheila had been waiting for 8 years. She was an elderly woman.
Wow. That's like the OG of the wait list.
So I said, "I beg your pardon? 8 years?"
8 years.
I said, "God, we are not doing even 8 days." 8 years. I can't. I said, "I'll be dead." 8 years, 3 days a week, 4 hours attached to these machines. I beg. I tire. I tire. Before I even start, make me come out from here. Somebody. So, yeah. So that's literally.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That long.
That long. But obviously I didn't last that long. I lasted a month.
Do you guys, when you go in there, do you make friends? Live friends? Do you?
Oh, I do. I made a live friend. His name is Mark. Love.
Wow.
Mark, if you're watching, love you, buddy. But yeah, Mark's been through the whole torrential bits and pieces. That was when I was drilled during hemodialysis. So through my veins. Explains why I've got my little.
Oh, yeah. So explain that to us. What's that for? Like, what's happening with that?
So
The viewers, especially. So
they are my battle scars. And I actually now confidently show them out. It took a while to get there. But so this was my first what they call a fistula, and it's pretty much your vein and your artery connect together to create an access point for the needle. Because the dialysis needle, which I think I showed you, they're actually quite they're quite big. So, and two of them go. So that's what a fistula is supposed to look like, obviously, but mine never matured. So I had the first surgery, and you're supposed to hear this brewing and whoosh whoosh sound through it if it's working. An hour after theatre, mine died. So then I had to told you a funny story. I had to go back in for a second surgery, right? But I said to my surgeon, I said, this is how you know I'm crazy with my faith. I said to my surgeon, I've got a church conference. That was a Friday, the surgery was done. I've got a church conference on Saturday and Sunday. Can I please be discharged to go home and attend this conference? And then I promise you, I will be back first thing in the morning for this surgery. They let me go. I came back for a second surgery. So the second surgery, they obviously took my big vein. So you would see that lump here. They literally took the vein that's under your armpit, moved it across to here, and then to create a new access. So I've got my needle mark. Then I got a transplant, stopped working. Then the next time I had a kidney rejection and I needed dialysis, they needed an access. I didn't have any, so they had to create another one. So they did. That died before it could be used. He had a blood clot. That died as well. That died as well. I've had ports put in. They are the worst things I've ever been through.
Yeah.
So having those ports and having to wear scarves in summer because you don't want people to see them and ask you 1,001 questions. That's what you go through. Now, I was very privileged to have a really good surgeon who understood me being a girl. I didn't want my fistula here because it meant I would have a big lump here. It meant I wouldn't be able to wear a watch. I wouldn't be able to wear a jewelry.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be having that.
Oh, wow.
So we opted for this.
So in total, how many surgeries could you say you've had to sustain?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Look, I'd say about 30.
Surgeries.
30 surgeries. Because every single time my fistula got blocked, it's another day in the theatre to unblock it. And I've had multiple of those alone. Oh, and you weren't asleep for them. Yep.
30 surgeries. And
including a biopsy.
you are so positive, so happy. Were there moments through this that you ever were fearful?
Yes.
Or doubted yourself that you were making? And how did you overcome that?
I think feeling the fear of not making it wasn't something that crossed my mind because, like I said before, I kept on declaring, I will not die before my time. I will live to decree and declare the goodness of God. So I just refused to be like, I'm going to die. In fact, I did have a few conversations with my mum and I said, if this sickness really wants to take me, it will take to burn the whole entire earth before I will be like, all right, you can take me. But it's going to take a whole fight, a fight that I'm ready for. But yes, I did have fear. There was one particular incident that I can think of that fear really grabbed me. That was before we had the conversation about dialysis. My kidney function was 10% or lower.
Please explain. What is that? What is 10% kidney function?
10% kidney function. Your body is no longer able to form urine. Your kidneys are not able to filter out toxins. You're keeping toxins in your body. Your feet are swelling. The obvious signs and symptoms are now starting to show up. You're very fatigued. You're very tired. You're not sleeping. Your body's very itchy. Nothing you can do about that. So all of it was now creeping up. The hospital stays, all of it. it's bombarding. The pain, the flank pain was a disaster in itself. But one admission after got taken to ED, got rushed from church to by my friends who, God bless their soul, they ran red traffic lights and got beaten by speed cameras. The doctors turned around to my mom and said, from here onwards, there's nothing we can do without a transplant. I think that night, hearing the words from your treating doctors, there is nothing we can do, I was like, God, you're kidding me. There's nothing you can do. This is it. You're leaving me to pretty much diminish. That's when fear settled in. The fear of the unknown. And also, I was always such a healthy child. So this was my first and only run in with a disease. So I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know. It was the biggest fear I had was the fear of uncertainty. I'm somebody who likes being in control of my life. I'm a very organized person and I like knowing what I'm doing tomorrow. I like planning. The fact that I didn't even understand this disease, I didn't know what my life expectancy looked like. I didn't know what to expect tomorrow. That fear of uncertainty, and yet I was at a prime of my career in nursing, was very, very frightening for me. Yeah.
Now, picking back to the guilt path,
Mhm.
yeah, can you share with us the experiences of someone that is going through treatment of kidney disease, the experiences with guilt from donation to receiving? What is your state of mind like? How does that happen? Because we do tend to be like, oh, we've got a kidney. Yeah, we've got an offer. We've got an offer. Everyone is looking at the offer, but sometimes we don't look at how the offer came about.
Yeah.
And so it must be really heavy, or it must have a reaction to that. So please take us along.
My first experience with transplant, and you're right, when a transplant comes along or a donation comes along, it's a very, very exciting moment, right? Everyone's like, new look on life, you've got a new life. Like it's this excitement, the room is filled, the hospital, everyone. It's exciting. You don't actually get a moment to sit in your emotions for a moment. It's after the transplant. The emotions kicks you. Two things, and I'll explain that in a minute. But what I experienced was this. Before I found out how my donor ended up being a donor, because it was a deceased donor. When you're on a transplant waiting list, you're waiting for a deceased donor. So there's that aspect of knowing a life is gone and there's a life starting. So there's the guilt you feel for that donor's family and loved ones, right? There's a guilt you felt. You also feel whether you are worthy. And again, it goes back to the power of words. You go through whether you are a worthy recipient. And then after the transplant, no one talks about the aftercare of a transplant. Everyone talks about infection control. Don't do this, don't eat that. The dieting part of it, look after yourself. No one talks about the mental health aspect of it.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing because no one talked, to be honest, Cece, nobody spoke to me about it. Nobody explained to me about it. It was, you end up with put on high dose of steroids as an anti-rejection meds. You're on a whole bunch of things. Your hormones are not regulated at the moment. You're feeling all sorts of things at the moment. You're not sleeping because of the steroids. You're eating more. You have a moon face. Your body's changing literally overnight. So put that on a young girl. And then you also found out that your donor passed away not far from the hospital. And then you find out the age of your donor. They don't disclose the name, but you're more than happy to write letters to the family. But you won't know this person unless the family agrees to meet. You can request. But I remember not just feeling guilty, but feeling really sad, really, really sad. Like, to a point, actually, I felt like I didn't want the transplant. And that's when I checked in with my social worker at the hospital just to check in, because I was like, I'm not sure if the feelings I'm feeling is supposed to be there. Because in my mind, I'm supposed to be excited, elated for this beautiful gift I've received. I'm so grateful. But why am I feeling so conflicted? Why am I feeling so hurt? Why am I feeling exhausted? Why I now have to take this meds for the rest of my life? That's exhausting. I don't want that. I don't want to do that, you know? So that was a whole challenging thing for me for transplant. So if you're out at home, you've just had a transplant or you're going for a transplant, support network is a big thing, but talk to your social worker, because you will end up being so non-compliant on your medication with the effects of the meds that's just not good. You'll end up in rejection.
Yeah. We do know that what you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
chronic illness, kidney disease,
Mm-hmm.
is a life-altering condition. And it does have a lot of implications or impact. Share with us, as a young woman in her 30s, going through
And fabulous. We're aging
30s,
gracefully.
fabulous and beautiful. Share with us how this condition has impacted your daily life.
And this is where me and you have a lot of similarities.
Tell me.
If I had to use one word to describe it, it would be expect the unexpected each day. And I mean that from the depth of my heart, because no, each day is the same. And I think I said to you last week, I take every day with a heart of gratitude, because each day I wake up from my bed and I'm able to return to my bed and not in a hospital bed. It's a win-win for me.
It is.
Because I never know how I'm going to wake up tomorrow. My days are never the same. Some days I wake up with absolute energy. And some days I can't get out of bed. I'm crushed. I'm done. Like, call it a week, call it the weekend, and it's only a Monday or it's only a Sunday night. It has impacted my social life a lot. I'm a social butterfly. Love going out. I now do 24-hour dialysis. So even as we're sitting here, I've got fluid in my tummy. I'm doing dialysis. You won't know. But with that being said, this dialysis that I'm doing now, it has a time limit. I can have the fluid in my tummy for up to 16 hours. So 16 hours for a young person finishes at 2 a.m.
Yes.
Meaning I can't hang longer than 2 a.m.
Bye-bye to the boyfriend.
Dating is a whole nother story.
I know.
Got to plan those dates early. Everything's got to happen during the day.
I know.
You know,
I can't. Early too.
Me and you spoke about sleepovers.
I know.
I can't just go drive to my friend's house, go for a sleepover. It's a whole process. I have to pack my dialysis machine. I have to make sure I've got enough fluid for the night or for the 2 days. Traveling. I love traveling. I can't just
tell me about
get on.
Talking about it the last time. We want to go to Margaret River.
We did.
But we cannot go because the procedure for us to go, it's like we have to build a whole house.
Well, we did say we can go, but if I had to talk to you through the process of us going to just Margaret River,
we just have to give up.
Just not even Margaret River, leave Margaret River, just to Joondalup alone. We talked about going to Joondalup.
I literally had to book a hotel just to be close to the studio because we can't handle the drive.
And she goes, oh yeah, you come over and like spend the night.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I forgot.
And I said, oh, that's going to be a long trip, because just from Ellenbrook to Joondalup, having to pack my dialysis machine into the traveling case, into the car, and then set it up. It's a whole process. And so that's some of the really hard reality people with disability or chronic illness actually go through.
Yes.
And getting the approval from the hospital, there's a time frame. You have to do it 2 weeks in advance. Some people a month in advance.
You're not independent of your choice.
No, you're not independent.
No.
I can't travel to every country.
No.
The country I want to travel to, it has to be where there is a Fresenius dialysis clinic close by in case of emergency. Also, disclaimer, if I was to ever travel international, I get taken off the transplant list.
Oh my God.
So that's why I don't travel international. So
we have to do things locally.
So that's some of the sacrifices we have to make.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think people are not cognizant
No.
of the difficulties or the challenges for people with living with disability or going through or suffering through chronic illnesses. Yeah, the sacrifices are humongous. They're very huge. And even sometimes with the little things that other people enjoy, like travel, adventure, relationship, touch, connection, those things for some of us are foreign. For some of us are foreign. We do not experience it the way others experience it, though we have to find a way to navigate. But just imagine not having that liberty to be a backpacker. Yeah.
Can't just pack your bag and get to the airport.
And just, I'm going to Fiji.
Be spontaneous. Rent a caravan for the weekend.
For the weekend.
Good. Travel down to Whoop Whoop. Can't just do that.
Oh, it's a Whoop Whoop.
Your doctor's like, where's Whoop Whoop?
Where?
How far is
How
Whoop
many? Do you have this? How many hours?
When are you going?
Medications? Who is? What? Are you alive?
Yeah. If anything's wrong,
straight
to the hospital.
Is there a hospital nearby? Is there an ambulance? Do you have?
It's a process.
It is a process.
But you know what? We're the toughest of the toughest soldiers.
I know, yeah. I always like how you always say we're the chosen ones, because there's one thing too, we suffer a lot, which is sleep. Yeah. Most people don't know sleep is a luxury when you're going through.
You know what I said though? I said to Fifi, I said, at this point, at this rate, insomnia needs to be our middle name.
Like, I literally, she's on Instagram at 3 a.m. And I'm like, why are you awake? And you know, the funniest thing is, I forget I am awake.
She's awake at 3.
The question, why are you awake?
And then I go,
why
are you awake?
Why are you awake? Why are you awake? So, you know, sometimes I just like, oh man. But you know what? When you're looking at your life right now, what is a takeaway from your situation? What you're going through? If someone was to ask you, what's the takeaway?
This life, what I can take away is I have discovered a new characters about myself. You know, when people tell you you are strong, you're a strong person. You're a strong person. Unless you have experienced.
That's right.
You have walked.
That's right.
Or have an inch of what on earth it takes every day to get up in this journey. I refuse to call it a disease.
No,
I refuse to call it an affliction. This journey that life has blessed us with, I have discovered that I am the most resilient person that I know of.
It builds your character.
Yes, exactly. And it has matured me in a way where I would never have matured. But I want to touch on something.
What?
There is a mindset that only you get from the kind of journey that Cece and I experience. There is a mindset shift, a change, a mindset of breaking barriers, a mindset of overcoming, and a mindset of looking at yourself and actually saying, I can do it. I can do anything. I have no limits. There's no limitation. Whatever I'm going through this journey, It is not a limit to me. It's not a barrier, right? It's rather, what I say, a stepping stone to me reaching the fruits that I couldn't reach before.
Yeah.
But like, I just realized, excuse my language for a minute, but I am just,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm just going to say it, but can I say it?
Yes.
Yes. I am fucking awesome and fucking strong and
Yes.
fucking fabulous.
Yes, you are.
Simple as that.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
And before we go, I know, it's a lot. That's what I'm saying. Like, you have so much nuggets. Congratulations on making history
Oh, God.
as the first female South Sudanese to be elected in the office of Australia as a whole. History in the making. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, among everything, Eva, that you could choose.
Here we go.
Among everything, you couldn't choose being married. You couldn't choose, having fun, running away, and eloping. You had to choose politics.
Where's the guy? You need a guy to elope.
You need a guy. It's true. So tell me, how did you get into politics?
I always say I got into politics by accident, but you're about to correct me. There is no such thing as accident. Fine. There is no such thing as accident.
Yeah.
I talk a lot.
Yep.
And I'm a very passionate person, sometimes a bit too passionate. But then again, here we are. I first got introduced, well, not even introduced actually, because politics, whether you like it or not, politics is in everything that we do.
Yeah.
Politics is in the medical decisions that you make, because who you elect as a health minister determines cha-ching, well, the services you're getting at the hospital. So for me, politics is like, it's a very big central part of my life. Whether I'm in it or not, I live politics, based on my journey that I go through. But it started off actually me being a nurse, and me just being very vocal about a workplace issue of people having their contracts cut. And then I joined my union. And at the time, I was actually a nurse in an aged care facility. And I remember United Workers Union, I joined them, and decided that there was a big rah-rah issues in our workplace, didn't want to lose my job, didn't want to be demoted. They fought hard for us. But I also felt very passionate about the issues that aged care workers were facing. They weren't being paid enough. They weren't respected. And I'm sorry, but they just weren't treated fairly.
Yeah.
And there was a campaign called I Turn to Care at the time that United Workers Union was running, jumped on board. And then we actually sat at a meeting, at what we call a delegates meeting, so workplace leaders meeting.
Yes.
And the state conference was coming up for WA Labor, and they said, so which one of your leaders would actually like to move a motion about changing aged care? Here goes me. Well, I'd like to say I was the shy girl, but I've been told nobody puts Evia in the corner.
No.
But there I was. I was like, oh, I'll speak. So I did. I got up at 2019 state conference, moved a motion about aged care. And yeah, that's my into politics.
That's your introduction.
That was my introduction.
And the rest
to politics.
is history.
The rest is history. Ended up at a local government. So
what advice would you give to people watching or listening to you right now? Someone who feels stuck, who feels like the weight of their circumstances. What advice would that be from Evia to them?
My advice for anyone who's watching from home, whatever you're going through, obviously I don't know what you're going through, but whatever you're going through, whether it's sickness, whether it's family issues, whether it's marital issues, all I can tell you honestly is be strong. But most of all, don't be afraid to take up space and be you. Don't be afraid to defy the odds. I know sometimes gravity tends to pull us down, but don't be afraid to go against gravity, whichever way it's flowing. Just dare to be different, right? That's what we say. Dare to be different. Because there's only one unique you in this whole entire world. And I always say, always leave a legacy. Find a purpose, live out your purpose in full. Just know, and I'm just going to speak directly to you and tell you that whoever you are purposed for bigger things, for greater things.
Yes.
You are purposed to inspire. You are purposed to impact. You are purposed to dream big, aim high, achieve more than you can ever dream for. You are more than your disability. You are more than your sickness. You are more than your marriage breaking down. You are more than your family breaking down. You are more than that single girl, young girl, stripped from her mum, stripped from her family. You are more than that. Find yourself in that, because I can guarantee you, when you find yourself in that, you have unlocked a new level of resilience in yourself, but also a love for yourself. And also, to literally leave it there, love yourself, because no one's going to love you more than you love yourself. And I always tell Sissy, you attract the kind of love that you give yourself.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
That's my advice.
And you have achieved already so much, personally, professionally. So even though I know what's next, because of purpose to impact, but what's next for Evia Aringo?
What's next? There's a book coming.
Okay. Author.
So we're currently writing. We've written 2 books already so far.
That's good.
But I think the plan is to finish writing this one and release this one first.
Yeah.
And I think that will give people a glimpse of who I truly am in terms of pages.
Yeah.
Not just my side, but you get to really feel the emotions of what I've been talking about today.
That's right.
But I think most of all, you actually get to experience the journey through my mum's eye as well, because that's a side of the story we never get to tell.
Yes.
But also, we will be launching Purpose to Impact.
Woo! I can't wait.
Which is a very exciting platform.
Thank you, Evia.
Thank you for
pouring your heart, sharing your story. In fact, just thank you for just making out the time to sit with us. I love you. And I always say you inspire me. So thank you guys for listening. So if you have heard Evia's story is one of resilience and purpose. And so in her story, it is showing us that in the darkest moments, there is strength to find. And so you just have to keep on digging. And so we're very pleased that she came to share her story. So if you have listened to Evia and you're inspired, please reach out to organizations that deal with kidneys, organ donations, mental health. Support them, reach out to them. And if you want to follow Evia and her journey, please get into the information on our website, and below you're going to have much more information about her personal story and where you can follow her on all social media platforms. So remember, your challenge does not define you, your resilience does. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of Daring Different with Ciara. Until then, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.